Hey, welcome to Optimize Your Body with Martin Silva, where we talk raw, uncut facts to truly help you optimize your body.
Yo, what's up, everyone? Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. This podcast is slowly but surely growing, but it's a very slow process. So if you could just tell your friends about it, if you enjoy it, spread the word. If you give me a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, that would be massively appreciated. I'm really trying to get my message out there and just generally try to help people, optimize their body. So yes, here we are, and I am 6 days in to no coffee. Are you proud of me? You should be, because the last time I tried quitting coffee, I failed miserably. As I've said before, it is a drug, it's a stimulant, so it is addictive, and it has some amazing health benefits, but there is a dark side to it as well. But, I mean, come on, it's not like a hard drug or anything. It's just, so I wanted to challenge myself, because when I did quit it I think it's about 18 months ago, I cut it out. I felt much better. Energy levels, just generally, my overall energy was better, and it just felt good. And then what I would do is just have pre-training, or when I felt I needed it, I'd have it and I'd get a massive boost from it, and just obviously your tolerance levels drop as you reduce the amount you have. So I was only having like 2 cups a day. But anyway, what I'm going to do now, I got this from another good podcast, folks, Ben Greenfield. Check out Ben Greenfield Fitness. It's an amazing podcast. I learned a lot of stuff from him. He's a genius. And that's what he does. He cycles coffee 3 weeks on and then 3 weeks off, or should I say caffeine. Actually, I think it's coffee mainly. So he'll have very little caffeine for 3 weeks, and then he'll have 3 weeks off coffee, yeah? So it's really good to cycle things like that, because the body will respond much better. And to be honest, it was just, I know that sounds a bit like too far-fetched, but for me, it was more a case of like I depended on it. So I would be like, right, I have my one in the morning before my clients, and then I would depend on that second one like midday-ish to keep me going then through the afternoon. It was like, right, I've got to have that to get this done kind of thing. That's the way I looked at it. And it's like, it's just a bit, I don't like to rely on stuff. I like to be strong-minded enough to get shit done without relying on things like that. But listen, anyway, geez, you would think I'd had a coffee now, wouldn't you? I'm just excited to speak to you all. So the first 2 days I was getting headaches and stuff. I'm not going to lie, withdrawals. They say the first 5 to 7 days are the hardest in terms of the withdrawals. But yeah, I had 2 days, didn't feel too good. I tell you what though, folks, I tell you what's taking a big hit is my training though. Jeez. It's a lot harder. It's actually quite miserable lifting weights without it. But yeah, it's just a challenge, and I'm not going to cut it out forever. It has some great health benefits. And anyway, that's what I wanted to... The 3 topics today anyway, just so you know what's going down. I'm going to talk about the benefits of coffee, because it is an amazing tool, and it makes you feel great, doesn't it? Let's face it, it gives you a kick. I just wanted to run through the benefits of it, because it is a very, very, very beneficial thing to include in your arsenal if you're using it properly. Caffeine or coffee, whatever. That's the first topic. Then is the pros and cons of coffee and caffeine. The second is I had a few people request, and I'm going to address 2. I really want to thank everyone as well for direct messaging me on Instagram. By the way, feel free to do that for the next podcast. If you're listening to this now, if you can direct message me on Instagram at Martin Silva Fitness, okay? Follow me first, and then direct message me any questions or anything you want me to cover on the next episode, and I'll see what I can do. Obviously, I couldn't address everyone who... I was actually overwhelmed by the amount of people that were actually interested, because I didn't think... I don't think I have a great deal of listeners just yet, but I mean, the ones who are listening are clearly interested, so that's great. And so I had at Sinead, so at SineadMCD.1. She messaged me and she wants me to talk about the contraception pill and how that relates to the ability to build muscle and get in shape, essentially, and how that relates. I can delve a bit deeper then and try and try to explain how that can affect your performance in the gym, your ability to build muscle, and I can go deeper into that. So I'm going to talk about that, and also my friend Jenna, she's known as at Jen Ann. So that's at JENNANNE at Jen Ann. Go check her out. She's got a really good page. In fact, go and check Sinead out as well. But yeah, check Jenna out, because she's doing a competition, I think, in about 10 weeks. The first, I believe she's doing WBFF, or maybe she's doing another one. Anyway, she's doing her first bikini competition in about 10 weeks time, I believe, and she puts out some really good content on her Instagram, so go follow her as well. She dropped me a message and said she wants me to talk about how, because obviously I've competed a lot of times, and she wants me to talk about how, you know, I can relate this to the average person as well, by the way, folks, just in case you're thinking, well, I'm not thinking of doing a competition, you know. I can kind of relate it to everything, because she wants me to talk about, you know, like saying no to social events as you're getting closer to stepping on stage. You know, you've got to make sacrifices, and you have to say no to a lot of, you know, exciting things. And we all know about FOMO, how much of an illness that is. You've all heard of FOMO, I mean, should I say FOMO, FOMO. It's actually an illness. No, it's not an illness. But fear of missing out. Now, we all know that, don't we? Do you know when you're like in on a Saturday night and you're like, your mates are all out, you're looking on their gram or their Snapchat, looks like they're having a whale of a time, but in reality, it's normally just another night out, isn't it? Let's face it, you're not always missing out on a great deal, but in your head, it's like that FOMO kicks in, it's like you're missing out. So anyway, when you're prepping for a comp, you know, it does get to a point which I'll kind of iterate a bit more on this. I'm trying to use different words here. I'm just going to stick to the basics. What am I doing? Right. I'll talk more about this later anyway. I'll talk more about saying no, you know, the art of willpower and you know, the power of habit. And obviously when you're prepping for a comp, like I said, you need to be completely, when you get to, let's say, about 4 weeks out, for me, is the way I looked at it. It depends, you know, where you are in your schedule and how well you're looking and feeling or whatever. But for me, when I got about 4 weeks out from my last comp, that's when I was like, right, I'm saying no to everything now, and I'm just literally putting my, you know, you put your all into it anyway, but as it gets closer, it's like you live, breathe and eat stepping on that stage, and that's it. Nothing else comes in the way. So in order to be at your best, and obviously I got to the professional level and I've done it naturally without any steroids and stuff. So and obviously I was competing in a untested federation, so you know, a lot of the guys probably were taking stuff, but I'm not taking any credit away from them, because regardless of what you take, it takes, you know, hard work either way. But I just think when you're natural, you do have to go the extra mile. I don't care what anyone says. You have to put more work in. You're not cutting corners. So for me, it was like, right, 4 weeks out, boom, I'm going to be dialed, and I'm going to put absolutely everything into it. And that's the way it is, really. So, yeah, I'll talk a bit more about that. And that's pretty much it. So that's 3 topics: contraception pill and the ability to build muscle, saying no to social events, etc., when prepping for a competition, and the pros and cons of coffee and caffeine. Now, let's start off with, I'm going to go with Jenna's question and the art of saying no, because this one I think is going to get you more intrigued, because when, you know, if you're looking to obtain good health, let's just look at the 4 pillars of health, right? To be an overall healthy human. Now, this is mentally, physically, and emotionally. In order to be a healthy human, the 4 pillars of health are, I should remember this, sleep, exercise, nutrition, and social connections. So there's another word for it. But yeah, basically, you know, having relationships with people. So those 4 things are essential for, you know, for overall health. Now, in order to build a good-looking body and achieve great health internally, and, you know, longevity and whatnot, you know, you have to have a reasonable amount of willpower. Now, it goes without saying, you know, and what I find is quite a lot is, you know, people will say, like I've had before, like, oh, you know, it's okay for you got willpower, you know. I find it really hard. Like, I've had clients say that to me in the past, and just people in general, like when I was prepping for comps or whatever, because I'm, you know, like a lot of people I know, like who are super healthy and into their training, they're in shape all year round, you know, and that's the way it should be. Because if you're healthy, it's not about being shredded and looking amazing all year round, which I do, by the way. Nah, joking. No, but it's not about being shredded. I'm such a dick. About being being shredded and looking good all year round, and being like, oh, look at him, he looks, being that kind of head-turning physique. It's not about that. It's about looking healthy, just being relatively lean, feeling good. I can tell with people, like I pick up on these markers, like skin, all these kind of things. You look at someone's skin, I can tell, normally, hormones get involved with that as well when people have, stuff like skin and, just generally how people look, their eyes, all these kind of things are markers as to how healthy they are. Now, where was I going with that? Yeah, God, I need to start drinking coffee again. It's going to be a long one, folks. Just stay with me. Bear with me. I'm just going to say about being healthy and willpower and looking good and feeling good. If you, people have said to me in the past, willpower, and it's okay for you because you've got willpower, you can do it. It's like, well, I've had to work on that willpower for years and years. Just like anything, any habit you build up, whether that be good or bad, let's just talk about the good ones. You need to say no to certain things, and you need to form habits, right? So that's what it comes down to when it comes to willpower. It becomes habit. It becomes second nature, right? I'm reading a really, really good book now called The Power of Habit. It's a very common book. It's a top seller, and maybe some of you have read it, but if you haven't, I would highly recommend that. The Power of Habit is fantastic. Can't think who the author is, but it says in the book, based on studies and they've done on the brain and stuff, and certain people and studies of humans, they find that about 40% of the things we do in life are habit. They're not decisions. So, let's just say 60% decisions and 40% habit. Now, most of the things you do on a day-to-day basis are going to be based on the habits you formed over X amount of time. Now, certain habits don't take long to form. Other habits take longer to develop, Now, that's when it comes to willpower. With willpower, it takes time, but I don't think it's all about willpower, as I say, because I think the habits are so powerful that when people have said that to me in the past, it's okay, you got willpower. It's like, no, you do have to build that up and work on it. But when you start getting into the habit, for example, I'm just going to try and relate now more specifically to Jenna's question because I'm going off on a bit of a tangent. But for example, she's 10 weeks out from a competition right now. And it comes to a point then where you've got to start saying no to things. I think, to be honest, Jenna, I'm going to address you personally, or anyone, it might be certain people listening to this who want to do a competition, or maybe are currently prepping for a competition. I'm prepping a girl now, actually. I don't know whether she even listens to my podcast, but I know she's prepping for a show, and she's, I should know this, she's around about 6 weeks out now. And hang on. June the 10th, where are we at now? Yeah, she's 5 or 6 weeks out. And it gets to a point where you don't have to say no to these things, but in reality, if you want to turn up on stage looking at your best, and you want to know that you've left no stones unturned, then you need to say no to certain social events and stuff, because yes, you can use the willpower you've built up, right? Because to get to a point where you're going to be doing a competition, if you've done it properly and you are going to look good on stage, which is, what it's all about really. I mean, yes, people say this a lot, which I find quite, it's interesting, each to their own, but I'm just doing it for the experience. I get that. But I don't get that because I'm extremely competitive. So obviously I do certain things in life for the experience. I want to be present and enjoy my life. But when it comes to competing against people, I'm not doing that for the experience. I'm doing it to win it. So for me personally, it's to bring the best package and turn up on the day at your best. Then it's a psychological thing, really, when it comes to saying no to things. Because the last thing you want is, for example, you're, say, 4 weeks out from a competition. It's one of your friends' birthdays. Everyone's going out or whatever. And, it's a big one. They're like, oh, just come along. You don't have to drink or whatever. And you all know this one, folks, don't you? And then you rock up and, the temptation's there. It's tough. It's tough with alcohol. I mean, maybe some of you don't drink alcohol, but I enjoy having a few drinks here and there. I'm not one of these people who's like, I don't like alcohol. I mean, I understand that. That's great. If you don't like alcohol, that's awesome because it's bad for you. But I do like having a few drinks here and there. And if I'm going to go out in that kind of situation, I've got a competition and I put myself in that environment with people who are going all out and drinking and getting smashed, then you know what it's like. Then people get drunk, they lose their inhibitions, and they're just like trying to force feed you drinks, buying you shots and stuff, and trying to get you twisted. Because although they care about your comp, let's face it, when people are pissed up, they don't really give a rat's ass about someone's competition. They just want to get you twisted with them, don't they? So when you if you put yourself in that environment, you're kind of in the lion's den, is the way I look at it. And if you do slip up, then, because it does happen. I mean, I know people who competed and they drank and partied right up until 2 weeks out. I mean, each to their own, but that comes down to other things as well, where it comes to like, that's what I notice is like there's people I've known who've taken gear for shows, which a lot of people do nowadays, which again, I'm not frowned upon, each to their own. But they can get away with doing stuff like that a lot more than someone who's natural, because they are pretty much 24 hours anabolic. So if they're taking tests, for example, or steroids or anything, their body's 24 hours anabolic pretty much. So they haven't got to worry about slipping up close to the date, because they can dial it in faster. But when it's someone who's natural and they're not cutting corners, guess what? You're not bloody 24 hours anabolic. In fact, you're as catabolic as they come at that point when it gets close to the date. So catabolic means you're not in a muscle building state. So you have to make sure you do everything you can to put yourself in an anabolic state, which is training all the time, sleeping well, and all these things. So saying no to those things are really important, I think. So, but at the same time, you know, as I said, like, so basically, let me just give you an example now, Jen, or anyone who's actually tuned into what I'm saying. I done the World Championship competition, basically the WBFF World Championships, my first pro level competition. That was 2 years ago almost now, and I was ahead of schedule for that. I had a coach who was really, really good as well, Jamie Alderton, at Grenade J on Instagram. Go check him out. And he was coaching me, and I was well ahead of schedule. So like 12 weeks out, I had this event, this fitness expo, and I was already really lean, pretty much shredded 12 weeks out. So then it was a case of I didn't have to go into too much of a calorie deficit and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, when I got to about 6 weeks out is when I really focused on dialing it in then. So I said, right, got the 6 weeks out. I thought, no drinking. Now, was that necessary? Maybe not necessary. 6 weeks out, where I was at in terms of my physique and my training, I didn't need to cut it out 6 weeks out. I probably got a good away with doing it up until about 3 weeks out. But I wanted to do it because I wanted to make sure, like I said, I left no stones unturned, and I was stepping on that stage with my best package, you know. So I stopped drinking 6 weeks out. I think I still went to 1 or 2 social events now. So personally, what I did is if I felt like, right, okay, it's my mate, for example, I think it was my mate's girlfriend's birthday. I think it was about 3 weeks out from a comp. And I turned up. Obviously, I didn't drink. They were all getting quite rowdy, but it wasn't too bad. Luckily, they weren't completely like ruined because I got there early. But I got there early and I left early. So I turned up. I did want to go because I wanted to see my friends. But at that point, you know, you most of the time you don't really want to. It's very tough because you're so antisocial with it. By the way, sorry about the background noise, peeps. I'm doing this at the gym, so I normally do it at home, but don't get much motivation sat in my living room doing it for some reason, so I'm at the gym. Anyway, so I went to my mate's girlfriend's thing, and where was I going? I was saying, that's right, yeah, so I would, if it gets to a point where you don't really want to communicate much with people. I know it sounds quite like, oh wow, it is like that. Like, I mean, when it gets close to the date, you know, you run down, your immune system shot to bits, really. You're not in a necessarily healthy state. You're really not, because if you've done it properly, your body fat's down super low, and you don't really want to go to these events. It's not a case of like the temptation. You don't want to go, you know. But I actually did want to go, because at this point I'd learned a lot about my body, and I felt good. Energy was good, and I felt great leading right up to it this time around. So if you do it properly, you should feel relatively good doing it. But everyone's different, and I turned up, showed my face. They were all drinking. I didn't drink. I stayed there for a few hours, and then I went home nice and early. So I showed my face. I got the pressure, obviously, even though they knew I was doing a comp. They're like, oh, go on, just have one drink. Like, my mates winding me up and stuff. But I didn't. So I wouldn't say necessarily you have to say no. It's not like I can't, right? So this is another thing I've mentioned a lot of times in the past. Never say to yourself, I can't do this. Even if you're doing a competition, I wouldn't say, I can't go to this social event because that is going to piss you off. Most of the time, that is going to get under your skin. And it's very restrictive. I mean, doing a competition, you have to be restrictive, right? But if you're too restrictive, guess what? It's going to make you even more moody. It's going to most likely increase your stress hormone levels, which are not good. Because we all know, maybe we don't all know, but for example, cortisol, the stress hormone, is a fast-storing hormone, so you don't really want to be pumping that up too much. And if it means those social interactions are going to benefit you leading up to your show, then go ahead. Obviously, you don't have to drink. Just chill out with people for an hour or so, and then just go home. So you choose not to do these things. And I can relate this to the average person listening to this as well, because I know most of you listening are not even going to fathom doing a bloody competition, but you do want to get fit and healthy, and you want to learn more, whatever the reason is you listen to this. But for the average person, never really say to yourself, I can't. You choose not to do these things. Or even when it comes to doing certain things that you want to achieve, you choose to do these things. So yes, you're going to get stressed at times when you can't get those things done, but listen, you don't have to do these things. Most of the time you choose to do them. So just say, just say to yourself, listen, I choose not to go here. I don't want to go. It's not like I can't go. I'm just not going to. I made a decision not to go to this social engagement. I've got a show in, like Jenna's talking about 10 weeks out right now, right? So I think that's a bit, personally, 10 weeks out from a show to actually stop. I mean, again, if you don't want to go to these social events because you want to stay focused on your comp and whatnot, and you think it's going to impede on that maybe, or whatever it is, or you think it might put you at risk, like I said, put you in the lion's den, then by all means choose not to do it. But don't be too restrictive that far out is my advice. Definitely not. I know she has a coach anyway, so hopefully he'll be keeping her on point. But what I'm trying to say is, the last thing you want to do is blow out, rebound, and start stumbling as you get closer to the stage. Yes, you want to be ahead of schedule, but going out on a social I was talking about alcohol then as well. I've gone off the boil right now. That's the big test. Sorry, I'm going to address this a bit better, Jenna. Is when you go to these social events, the food. Right, okay, I went off the boil a bit there. That's the important thing. We all love food. I love food. Forget about alcohol. I'll choose food over alcohol at any time anyway. So if you go into a restaurant or something with people, and you know there's not many options on the menu for you to eat healthy, what I used to do before is, like I said, I would say no. I said no to drinking 6 weeks out. I went to an engagement thing 3 weeks out for my show. But generally, about 4 weeks out, I'll just say no to these things because of the food. Now, could you go out and have a bad meal, and would it affect you on the day? Yeah, probably. You could go out and have a bad meal, and would it affect you on the day? No, it probably wouldn't. Actually, almost definitely it wouldn't if you have, say, 3 or 4 weeks out. But you got to bear in mind that it's all the psychological elements. So if you go out and there's a social engagement, you're going to go out and you can have a shit meal, or you think there's nothing on the menu. Sorry, if there's nothing on the menu available, then you might end up having a crap meal and feeling like crap afterwards, and then the binge eating disorder is very common, especially if you've been restricting your calories, and it might trigger off a binge. So you've got to be mindful of that. So what I would say to do now in hindsight, because I've learned a lot since I competed last, is don't be too hard on yourself too soon. I would say 2 weeks out from the comp, at least 2 or 3 weeks out, don't eat out at all. Definitely don't eat out. Everything, I mean, you're probably not going to anyway because you're a coach, but don't eat out, because it's not so much it's not even about the calories, it's about the sodium and whatever else they add. You don't know what they're putting in there, and then the water retention. So just in case you don't know what I'm talking about, folks, the water and your ability to dry out properly, so to speak, on stage is really, really important. So you need to be looking dry on stage and not holding water. So if you turn up on stage and you have water retention, you're going to look softer, and it's definitely going to go against you. So when it comes to eating a meal out, and eating out, and maybe whatever it is, dropping your guard close to the date, I would avoid that, because you just don't know how that's going to affect water fluctuations and all that kind of stuff. So what I would say, Jen, just to wrap it up, sorry, I hope this has helped a bit, but I kind of I make like a list, but it doesn't always go to plan, so I'm just going off on one. But what I would say, to summarize, don't eat out 2 or 3 weeks out. Just don't risk it. Don't be too hard on yourself too soon. If you're going to go out with mates, eye up the menu, see if there's anything reasonable you can have on the menu. Now, like any time between now, so you're like 10 weeks out and say 3 or 4 weeks out, let's say, just do what you got to do. But then as it gets closer within that last month, it just comes down to actually saying no and having the power to say no. And just, let's face it, the best motivation I can give you really to actually say no and to have the willpower to go through the pain, so to speak, because we feel like it's quite painful when people are out enjoying themselves and you can't. But remember, it's not that you can't, it's because you've chosen to do this show. You choose not to go out. You've chosen to do this. So just remember, I would say to yourself, I choose not to do it when it comes to 3-4 weeks out. Okay, so just stay away from that environment, and just think it's a flash in the pan as well. Like if you think about the reward of getting up on that stage, bring in your best package, it's not all about winning. For me, it was very important because I'm very competitive, but I just learned to improve my physique every time. That was my goal. So every time I competed, if I stepped on stage, regardless of the results, if I didn't look as good, then that is what would really grind me down. So it's about actually bringing a better package every time. So just imagine the feeling, the reward, the elation of actually getting on that stage, getting out of your comfort zone, because the hardest thing about the first comp is actually, striking the poses and getting on that stage. So, you just gotta focus on the bigger picture, and just keep it dialed as you get closer. As you get like a month within, just start saying no to more things, I would say. I hope that helps anyway. I try my best. Anyway, folks, but you can relate that to just general things in life. You choose not to do things. It's not that you can't do them. Don't ever say I can't do it. For example, this 28-day challenge I'm doing now, the fat burning challenge. I've got a Facebook group, so I keep saying to people on the group, if life gets in the way when you get to the weekend or whatever, and I haven't said on the 28-day challenge you can't have alcohol. I've just advised them what kind of alcohol to have, such as like red wine. I know it's got calories in it, but like 1 or 2 glasses of red wine with a meal or something is not going to hurt once or twice a week. But other than that, it's only 28 days. Again, we can relate this to the competition, but my challenge is 28 days. So if you're gonna have it's about being good most of the time. It's not about being perfect. So just remember that. I'm not going to go on too much more now because I'll just start repeating myself. So that's the end of that one. And I wanted to talk about addressing at Sinead MCD.1. So I guess her name is Sinead McDonald or McDonnelly or whatever it is. Sinead, I'm going to answer this for you now because I do get this is a very good question because we skimmed over this last week at the podcast with Mickey Parker, but we didn't go into a great deal of detail, so I'll try and go into more detail now. But so the contraception pill, now it's very, very common nowadays, obviously, for a woman to be taking the contraception pill. And obviously it is going to have a direct effect on absolutely everything in your body if you're taking that. Personally, we all know it's not ideal to be taking something that is going to have a direct effect on your hormones. Is it really? Not always. In certain cases, you need to take things, but generally, it's going to do something to your hormones, which is not always going to be beneficial. Yes, it's going to stop you from getting pregnant, but obviously everything comes at a bit of a price. So it's not ideal for the body, obviously, for people to be taking this, women to be taking this, but it's got to be done. And it's going to have a massive effect on the whole chemistry of your body, on all of your hormones, on pretty much everything. So I'll say that straight with you as well. In fact, what's really fascinating is they've done this. This is not actually planned, but I just wanted to share this with you. This is how powerful those contraceptive pills are. Now, I don't know the details of these studies, but they've done studies on women who were taking the contraceptive pill and women who weren't. And what they found is, which is really fascinating, is they were attracted to different. Basically, their taste in men completely changed. So, and apparently, like the way they dance and stuff is different when they're in clubs to attract certain mates. And apparently, women who don't take the contraception pill, I think, were more attracted to the rugged kind of looking guy, you know, or like a guy, like the macho kind of looking guy, strong jawbone, you know, that kind of look. Whereas the women taking the contraceptive pill were more attracted to men who would be more of a good bearer of their child kind of thing. So just guys who are not as masculine, maybe. They were more, women who took the pill were more kind of wanted the secure option, if you like, and going for a guy who would be kind of a better father as opposed to a guy with higher testosterone levels or whatever. So I don't know if that makes much sense to you, but it just goes to show that it does completely alter the brain. So it does completely alter your brain chemistry. And when it comes to building muscle, I looked into some studies actually prior to this podcast, and it is going to completely, it does alter your steroid hormone levels. So yes, it's going to have an effect on your ability to build muscle, and I'm actually going to bring those studies up now as well. But yeah, it does have a direct effect on your anabolic hormone levels, which we need to build muscle, such as the types of testosterone like DHEA. I'm just going to run through these studies with you now. It's really fascinating, actually, because women who take the contraceptive pill have said they've done a study for 3 times a week for 10 weeks. And the researchers had 73 young women. So I know it's not on a big scale, this study. So, you know, it's not going to be 100% accurate, but it gives you an idea. 73 young women aged between 18 and 34 years old. They were to complete 13 different exercises. The regimen was intense, working muscles throughout the body. None of the recruits had regularly worked out beforehand, but they sure were now. Okay, I didn't know it was going to be this long a story. Cut to the chase. Each had to complete a resistance training against weights that were individually tailored to worker muscles at 70% of their maximum strength. By the way, folks, 75% is kind of the optimum intensity you want, really, for building muscle as such, hypertrophy. And 34 of them, out of those 73, were taking some kind of oral contraceptive. And what happened was they gained 2.1% muscle mass over the trial, right? So they did gain muscle, but a very, very small amount. And that is a staggering 40% less than the group who are not on the pill. So the guy who actually ran the study said that he found the women using the oral contraception had dramatically lower blood levels of natural anabolic, as in muscle building hormones, that the recruits on the pill didn't have. So the anabolic hormones, including, like I said, DHEA, which is a type of testosterone, I think, and basically what it says is the non-pill users also had, so the women who were taking the pill, also the women who were taking the pill had drastically higher levels of cortisol in the blood, which, as I said earlier, is the stress hormone, and that is a catabolic hormone, so it's associated with the breakdown of muscle, right? Cortisol. So if you've got too much of that in the bloodstream, that's going to have an adverse effect on muscle building. So obviously that is just a small study, but it gives you an idea. And I just wanted to also relate, Sinead. I hope that helped a little bit. That study gives you an idea, but I wouldn't read too much into that and panic too much, girls, because the bottom line is, I'm going to run through this now. That's just a study. It's pretty obvious, really, that I think for most women, maybe they might not build as much muscle as the average woman, but I don't think there's going to be a great deal in it. I think 40% less. I think that's a bit drastic, but I guess that's what that study said. But I think you need to focus on covering the big rocks in life, really. So whether or not you're taking the pill, if you ask me, when it comes to building muscle, as I've said numerous times, it's the fundamentals, it's the important things, right, which are going to make a massive, massive difference on your whether or not you're sending the signals for your body to build muscle. So, for example, getting enough sleep. Trying to, I've gone through this millions of times, try and get a minimum of, say, 7 hours sleep a night, or everyone's different. Find the sweet spot for you. Like, the sweet spot for me is about 7 hours sleep. I can function well on 6. Anything less than that, I'm terrible. 8 hours, great, perfect. Any more than 8, I get a bit sluggish. So, everyone's different, but getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, food, what food you do, let's go back to the 4 pillars of health, nutrition, exercise, sleep, and social connections. Look at those 4 things. how are your relationships with people? Are you happy with, the way your relationships are going with people? Are you having a lot of stress with relationships? Are you getting enough sleep consistently? Because even one bad night's sleep can have sleep is vital. It's so important. So even one bad night's sleep, they've linked to insulin resistance over one night can make you more insulin resistant the next day, which means less sensitive to carbohydrates. So you'll store carbs as fat easier and basically just generally in a worse state of health the next day just after one night's sleep. Not to mention your concentration levels and your hormones, all the rest of it. So these are the important things really when it comes to building muscle. So if you ask me, if you've got those things in place, it's not going to be, you're going to be splitting hairs when it comes to worrying about building muscle. If you're focusing on the most important things, like I said, eating the right foods, blah, 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 blah. But what I would recommend is, Sinead, is maybe getting some, I don't know whether you directly are kind of struggling with building muscle, or if you're just inquiring because you're intrigued about it. But what I would recommend doing is getting blood tests and maybe getting your hormones checked just to see where you're at. I think maybe doing that regular might be an idea for you. So I think doing that on a regular basis, maybe every few months or every 6 months, checking up your hormone levels and getting regular tests to make sure everything's in check, and obviously all the rest of it, getting your blood sugars, and even if you can get a food intolerance test, I'd highly recommend that. Although I haven't had one yet, I need to get one. Look at me, I should be practicing what I preach. But just getting your gut checked one way or another, and just making sure all the foundations are there really, and you're not going to have any issues really. I mean, it might be a bit slower than someone who's not taking the pill, and to be honest though, certain people can have really bad long-term effects from the contraceptive pill. So you may need to make sure that just try and be in tune with your body, and if you're getting any symptoms or any negative kind of effects in terms of your energy or your stress levels and your mind state and stuff like that, then you might want to switch pills or look deeper into that. But for example, I've got a girl who's also, her name's Sinead actually, and I'm prepping her for a competition now. And she's taught me a lot about it actually, because let me just see if I can remember this rightly now. She actually sent me over this book, which I'll bring up for you now, Sinead, as well, which I haven't actually read yet because I've just gone by what she's saying. But I will bring that up for you now in a minute. Now in the minute, that's a Welsh thing, by the way. That's what we say in Wales. Doesn't make any sense. Now in a minute, but so I'll bring that up for you. But she says that on her cycle, and this has been across the board really, they find this is quite common, is within the menstrual cycle, I think within the first 14 days, I mean, for example, there's 16 different types of estrogen in the body, I think, so it's very complex, but I'm pretty sure progesterone, I think, may be dominant. It's either progesterone, which is I think is the kind of opposite hormone to estrogen, if you like, where it kind of has, it does the opposite thing to estrogen kind of in the body. I think I should know this, but I think that is dominant within the first 2 weeks, I believe, the menstrual cycle. So that either way, the first 2 weeks are meant to be the roughest when it comes to strength, building muscle, and just generally I think the first 2 weeks for most women are kind of the worst when it comes to gym performance, building muscle, energy and stuff like that. And then I believe that the last 2 weeks generally are a bit easier as the hormones kind of balance out, or wherever it is. But so that's what I've learned from her, is the first couple of weeks are just not the best when it comes to strength and stuff like that. For example, I remember her saying she was doing, I think her PB on the deadlift was 105 kilos, I believe. And then when she hit the first week of her menstrual cycle, she couldn't even pull 85 kilos. So she dropped 25% or whatever it is strength within a week or two. That's kind of that's how much of an effect it has. I'm talking about the menstrual cycle, by the way. Now, I'm just trying to relate this to. I'm just trying to relate this to females in general. Now, I'm obviously elaborating a bit. I know it was about the contraceptive pill, but I want to now delve a bit deeper into the menstrual cycle in general. It's going to play a part in energy levels and whatnot. But what I'm going to do is, I believe this book she sent me has got some things in there in relation to the contraceptive pill and whatnot. So I'll forward that book on to you, Sinead. Right, I'll send you a DM now so I can get your email address, and I'll send that book over. It might be quite handy. But yeah, just to summarise that, in general, it sounds like women are going to build generally slightly less muscle if taking the contraceptive pill, but it's nothing to read into. Focus on the important things: training, programming, training properly, getting enough sleep, getting the right food in, nutrient deficiencies. That's why I say get blood tests, get tests on get tests on your hormones and stuff to see if you have any deficiencies, nutrient deficiencies and whatnot. Get your hormones checked, get a full spectrum of tests, blood tests, and see where you're at. So then, because the better state, that's why optimize your body, it's like the better state of health you're in, this is what I've learned, the better state of health you're in, then the better you're going to look, the better you're going to perform, and all the rest of it. So make health a priority. Get your shit checked up and see where you're at, really. I hope that's helped a bit. Anyway, Sinead, like I said, I hope that's helped a bit. I'm going to move on to coffee now and caffeine. Now, this is quite, what's it called? Quite interesting, actually. Lots of crazy, amazing studies on coffee, which is why I'm not going to cut coffee out forever, by the way. It's just wanted to challenge myself and enjoy the benefits more when I bring it back in. But, yeah, like... For example, it's good for the brain. Okay, now I can't remember. Again, I'm going to go into studies, but where I get these studies from are normally from respectable people, so they are genuine. Obviously, we don't know shit though. Always remember that, folks. That's what I keep telling myself. Studies, yeah, okay. Science, okay, whatever. But the bottom line is, we don't know shit. So question everything. Science is always changing. It's always changing. But this is where, but there is going to be, the studies are going to give you some kind of feedback, right? So anyway, these studies done show that regular coffee drinkers, this is not kind of like, what's the word, excessive coffee drinkers. This is people who drink, like 2 or 3 a day, I guess. And this is the thing is, folks, it's like people, a lot of us think, oh yeah, I love coffee, I love having a coffee, I can't go without. But if you're not having a long black or espressos, or maybe if you're having coffee with a bit of milk, great. If you're having sugar in there, or you're having milk like lattes, most of the time, yes, you're going to get a little bit of a kick from the coffee, but you're going to be after the sugar more than you are the actual coffee itself. So unless you're having just coffee like I have, like long blacks, or like you want to call it, like black coffee in the UK or whatever, or Americanos in America, whatever, just straight coffee or espressos or whatever, then, obviously, yeah, you like your coffee. I'm not saying you don't like your coffee if you're having like cappuccinos and lattes, but most of the time you're doing that for the hit of sugar. Because, there's going to be, even if you're just having it like a plain latte, it's sugar and milk, right? Lactose and milk is addictive anyway. So, so just bear that in mind, it's not always the coffee that you really want. So, but yeah, people who drank just coffee straight, with 13% less chance of depression. Now, again, I don't know how they correlated this, but it does make sense because there's been proven beneficial effects of coffee on the gut. Now, as I've said before, 90 to 90. I'm going to bring coffee back in. I can't go on like this. 90 to 95% of the serotonin receptors in the body are produced in the gut, and a lot of other neurochemicals, like there's 20 other hormones produced in the gut. So it makes sense that if it has a beneficial effect on the gut, then it's going to help the mind. So yeah, 13% chance, less chance, risk of getting depression. 12% improved gym performance. They did a massive study on thousands of people. Can't remember how long the studies were done over, but 12% improved gym performance. Now, I can 100% vouch for this because my training this week has been a struggle. As I said, it's been a struggle. It's not been enjoyable training. I it's so much harder, right? And I feel that 12%, if not more, in terms of my strength and stuff. But I know after this week I'll be fine. I'll be firing at all cylinders from next week. But yeah, 12% improved gym performance as well from coffee. And then what I'm going to do when I bring it back in, here's a little tip for you folks, very, very handy tip actually. If you mix coffee with fats, some healthy fats or even saturated fats, it'll give you more sustained energy. It'll give you generally much more sustained energy, because the fats slow down the breakdown of caffeine. So if you can get some MCT oil, medium chain triglycerides, if you can get MCT oil and mix that into one of your smoothies or shakes or whatever, or into your coffee, then smoothies or shakes, I meant to add that to your coffee, MCT oil, and that's going to give you much more sustained energy. Coconut oil as well. You can add it to your coffee. Personally, I don't like the taste, so I just have a teaspoon raw and then drink my coffee, and it does give me a much more sustained energy. Cacao as well, if you can get raw cacao. Butter as well, bulletproof coffee they're talking about. If you can get some organic butter, like saturated fat, it's going to slow down the release, and it'll give you more of a kick, for more of a sustained energy. So you might want to try that as well. But yeah, with caffeine, what it does is it blocks off a neurotransmitter called adenosine, and now adenosine is it tells us basically that we're fatigued, we're tired, and caffeine inhibits this, so it doesn't make us realize that we're tired, and blocks off that fatigue, and then as a result of that, then your brain will pump out the stress hormones, then cortisol, norepinephrine, and adrenaline. So it releases all three stress hormones. That sounds like it's bad, but it's not. It's actually good to have these stress hormones released. Just not, you don't want too much and too often, obviously. So that then contributes to the release of dopamine in the brain, then, which gives you the mental clarity and whatnot. And it's a miracle, really, isn't it? Caffeine, it's great. So yes, it's just interesting. The science, that's the science behind it anyway, in case you're wondering. Also increases metabolic rate, so it does help with fat burning. It's thermogenic, if you like, so it will elevate your metabolism. I think I looked at some studies, and it was by something like, was it 11% or something like that? It might have been 3%. Anyway, it does increase your metabolic rate, so it is good for fat burning. But at the same time, if you're having too many, again, everyone's different. So certain people can have 4 or 5 coffees, drink right before bed, go straight to sleep, doesn't affect them mentally. Whereas someone like me, for example, I'm very sensitive to coffee. So I don't drink after about 2 p.m. is my cutoff, because coffee has a 3-hour half-life. So it's going to be in your system for about 6 hours. And what they've proven is, if you drink coffee after midday, generally, your REM, the important part of your sleep, the deep sleep, is not going to be as good. Even if you think you slept better, you're most likely better off cutting coffee out earlier in the day. But again, everyone's different. But even if you don't feel it, I just think generally having all that caffeine in your bloodstream whilst you go to bed is not going to be beneficial. So just be mindful of that as well. But yeah, it's all sorts of miracles. I couldn't believe the benefits when I looked more into it. Reduced risk of diabetes by 7%, and that was a study done in 457,000 people, by the way. So reduced the risk of diabetes by 7% because of obviously the effect it has on insulin. So it has a positive effect on insulin sensitivity if used, if not abused, and provided everything else is good, like you're covering the big rocks, like I mentioned earlier, then it can reduce your risk of diabetes and certain health ailments. There's a few other chronic illnesses that it can help mitigate as well. But let's face it, again, it's towards the bottom of the list when it comes to mitigating chronic illnesses. You need to focus on the important stuff. But yeah, it's great. So what I would say, folks, is use it as a tool. And if you're going to have it before training, try what I said and add some fats, because it will slow down the breakdown. It'll give you more sustained energy, and I definitely get better sessions. And I actually stopped doing it. I don't know why, but I will start doing that again. So yeah, just a teaspoon of coconut oil or some butter. Maybe you could even just, if you're going to make a smoothie, just throw your coffee in there and just blend it all up together. Throw the butter in there, or whatever you're going to throw in there, and just blend it all up and get it down you. Whatever works for you. So, but yeah, there's obviously a dark side to coffee as well if you abuse it. For example, one of my clients, I'm not going to mention her name, she'll have about 5 coffees. I'll train her at 9:30 in the morning. She's already had 5 coffees, and and it's just, I just tried telling her it's not ideal, because it's going to put you. I don't want to talk too much about personal issues or whatever, but it's going to put you into a fight or flight response, essentially, when you have a coffee. So, the adrenal glands are going to pump out those stress hormones I talked about. And if you're having bloody 5 in the morning, then it's not doing your stress levels any favors, and it's probably not doing your metabolism any favors either, because it's overload essentially. So yeah, it'll put you in that fight or flight response. If you're someone who suffers from anxiety and stuff like that as well, then you might want to be mindful that coffee is a stimulant, and it's probably it might be fine, but just be mindful if you're having coffee and you suffer from anxiety, it might kind of accelerate the issue and make it worse. Dehydration as well, like for example, what I got people doing on my 28-day challenge is one of my rituals, which I've only done for a few weeks, but I'm definitely going to keep it going, is first thing in the morning, I'll have like 300 milliliters of warm water or hot water, a quarter of a lemon squeezed, and about 3 grams of pink Himalayan salt. And now pink Himalayan salt has about over 60 different trace minerals in it, so it's really, really good for you. Not to mention salt actually hydrates you. People think it dehydrates you. Obviously it can if you have too much of it, but it's vital for actually hydration because of the effect it has on the water levels in your body and whatnot. So have that in the morning first thing, I would say, if you can, before you have your coffee. Bang in that drink I was talking about, and a quarter of a lemon, 3 grams of pink Himalayan salt, warm water. Some people say it's a bit salty and they can't drink it. I actually really like it. If that's the case for you, just don't have as much salt in it. It's still going to benefit you, because where I'm going with this is, coffee can dehydrate you, right? So caffeine on its own will dehydrate you. Now, obviously, it's a bit over. I think people have gone over the top with it. It doesn't fully dehydrate you because you're having water with it. But when you get up in the morning, you're dehydrated to the max because you haven't had water for 8 or whatever hours. So if you get up and just having coffees and not having much water, then you're just going to dehydrate yourself more, and you're not setting yourself up to win the day. You know what I mean? If you let's face it, the things you do in the morning, they're gonna dictate your whole day, really. So if you want to own the day, then your best bet is to hydrate. So try what I said, get that drink in, and then maybe have your coffee after that or whatever. But I wouldn't recommend just go straight into drinking coffee and not getting much water in. But yeah, just bang, because that is the ultimate mix, those three, because digestion and everything really. So bang that in the morning before you have your coffees. Yeah, and that's me done and dusted. I've got nothing left, peeps, to be honest. It's a Friday, it's 2 p.m. I've had no coffee since Saturday. Very, very little caffeine. I've just been having the odd decaf coffee and a little bit of green tea. And I've had a busy week, so I'm going to sign out, folks. But you should definitely take a look. Go over to my Instagram. If you don't follow me on there, then where have you been? Go check me out at Martin Silva Fitness, and you can sign up for my 28-day fat burning challenge. If you go to my Instagram, click the link, and you're going to get some fantastic results. If your goal is to lose body fat and to improve your health and improve your relationship with food going forward, this plan is a game changer. So you can either go to my Instagram and click the link there, or just go over to my website, www.martin-silva.co.uk, and you can check it out on there and sign up. So go check that out. And like I said at the start, if you can give me a rating and review on iTunes, it'd be massively, massively appreciated. Was there anything else I had to cover up? Let me think. That's pretty much it. Anyway, folks, have a cracking weekend, and thank you very much for listening in. Like I said, go check me out on Instagram and stay in touch. And what I would recommend as well, if you can direct message me on Instagram your email address, I will add you to my list. So I'll send you out free content weekly, send you out a free newsletter with lots of free information on there. Thanks a lot, peeps. Over and out.